Welcome to the Amner Martinez Podcast, a Des Moines, Iowa local-centric podcast. Since 2019, I've had the privilege and honor to speak with local politicians, chefs, musicians, athletes, authors, and more. In the 2025 season, we want you to walk away from this podcast knowing our local people in a different light and seeing them from different angles than you're used to. So stick around for interesting conversations. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amner Martinez. This is my podcast, the Amner Martinez Podcast, here in Des Moines, Iowa. And my next guest is Julie Solis Alvarado. She works for Bellin McCormick, a law firm here in Des Moines, Iowa, and she is an immigration lawyer, specifically in employment immigration. So she's my second immigration lawyer that I speak with. Why? Is because I like to learn and I like to understand the complexities of situations or systems or processes. And then I can form my opinion. And she was gracious enough to come and educate me on all things employment immigration. You will be surprised on the cost and the timeline and how complicated it is for employers to hire people from a different country. We all see the negative talk on social media and in the news, the narratives that are being placed upon a blanket statement on immigration. So I thought it'd be helpful to talk with experts, people that have degrees and that practice. So I want to thank Julie for sitting with us. And if you want to connect with her, just shoot me a message and we'll be more than happy to connect you. Here it is, Julie Solis Alvarado on the Amner Martinez Podcast. Thank you. Julie Solis. That's your are you married?
I am married, yes.
Yeah,
so now it's Julie Solis Alvarado.
Julie Solis Alvarado.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
And you are an immigration lawyer specifically in employment.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for joining me. We've talked before. We've done some conferences calls before, right?
Yes, we have.
We refer people to each other sometimes. And like the reason why I still enjoy doing this podcast is because whenever there's something that I'm not well educated on, okay, I kind of I take advantage of it. I'm like, okay, let me learn more about this, right? And obviously immigration is like, it's always been a hot topic, but now more than ever. I don't think we've been in this kind of situation before.
It's a very public topic right now, right? I mean, everyone that didn't care about it or didn't know about it now knows something about it, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I think that's... those of us that have been doing this work, like we know there's up and down and there's craziness to it all. But I do think there's like a new level of publicity that has come with like the topic of immigration.
It's unique. It's not like before.
Correct. Yeah.
There's been deportations before. Like
yes.
Immigration has always been part of this country, and there's a system, but right now it's just feeling and visually different, right? Like even
yes, I mean it's very polarized, right? It's always been a political issue, right? But it's I think more than ever it's you're either here or you're here, and there's like no in between, right? Or so it seems like.
Right.
But yes, I mean you turn on the radio, it's on there. You turn on the TV, it's on there. You turn on, you go on the internet, it's everywhere. So.
Right. And with that comes people's perceptions or opinions or thoughts on something, right? And a lot of people think they know what they're talking about, and sometimes they're just so wrong that it's scary. that, like, you know, especially like if you go on social media, if you see something from the news, if you go into the comments, people are nasty and ugly. Like,
yes,
it's crazy.
I avoid that at all costs, right? But it's so hard. I mean, I think with technology now, it's easy to hide behind, you know, the keyboard, right? What they call keyboard warriors, right? And it's easier for people to, I think, express their views, good or bad, because you can be anonymous, right? And there's like no accountability, or it can't be traced back to you to a certain point. So I think that really brings out, you know, people's ability, or like, you know, they're like, well, if I can just say this and not be accountable, let's just do it. So I think that paired with just, you know, the political tension today is kind of what we see is, like people are more vocal about it. And it is a little bit scary to see what's, like, you know, what people really think sometimes.
And I think like people are expressing some feelings based on like wrong information, though, you know, like,
for sure.
Like people think that undocumented people have benefits or take benefits, which is like not
completely
factual.
False.
It's false. So if somebody hears that and they think it's true, then, you know, they spark some kind of anger towards that other person, right? Towards that undocumented person. So that's why I kind of I'm on this immigration thing where I want to talk to people that practice the law and are in the world, and see if we can shed some light on like some basic stuff. So when you started practicing, is it what you expected?
In terms of what I'm doing today, no, so I thought initially before I went to law school that I was going to be a prosecutor, right? I had really done a lot of like social work in my prior career, and then I worked with a lot of prosecutors. So I thought I was going to do criminal law. I thought I was going to either be a prosecutor or maybe a criminal defense attorney. Turns out I get to law school and like criminal law is like my least favorite class, the one I do like terrible in because I think I thought I knew it all, right? Because I had worked. So I was like, you know what, this isn't it. So I always knew I wanted to do some immigration work. I had worked before with immigration attorneys, but I honestly only thought immigration was like family-based, right? Had no idea really about business-based immigration or employment-based. Went through law school, took, you know, immigration classes, worked in the immigration clinic, and still didn't know about employment immigration, which is now that I'm out in the world now, I talk to law students and I'm like, do you know about business immigration? Does your school teach it?
Yes.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just not a career path that they teach or that they emphasize. And I'm not really sure why that is, right? I think there's just, obviously there's a bigger need for family-based immigration. So I think that's where the resources are pooled. So I really didn't know what business immigration was until I started practicing. I came into a firm that had one business immigration attorney, and that firm had a lot of ag clients. So business immigration, you know, is big in the ag industry because of the lack of workforce available. And so I came in, they really had a need. And so that's when I first started learning, right? Oh, there's actually a potential pathway for individuals to gain status through their employment or their employer. So I started learning all about it and was just kind of like mesmerized that, like, how did I miss this? How do people not talk about this, right? There's so many opportunities there for people to gain status. And I had no idea. And I considered myself like pretty educated on immigration at that point. And even I didn't know about it. And the more I thought about it, my dad and his dad and my grandparents had worked in the U.S. for many, many years, like through their generations, right? And it was sponsored. by their employers. And so it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, I do know about, employment based because it's in my history, right? But it was never something that, my parents never talked to other people about it. I never heard it like in our communities, like, hey, has your employer petitioned you? It was never like an avenue that people thought about in my experience. And so as I'm doing this work, I'm like, really, we need to like talk about this, right? This avenue and this ability. And as I do the work now, I realize there's like a big need for, foreign talent. And so not at all to answer your question, what I thought I would be doing.
Right. So because it's so complex, right? Like there's so many complexities to immigration. And I just kind of want to connect some dots for people because even for myself, because like you're right. So some people don't even know that like that world exists, right? Like some people live in such a bubble that that they just don't know that there's immigration and there's processes. Like immigration is just as big as the IRS or just as big as DHS, just like this system.
Yeah, it's funny you compare it, right? They always tell me, like tax attorneys and immigration attorneys, I think, can bond because immigration attorney is like tax. It's very, very complex. It's one of the most complex legal practices.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I'm an immigrant, right? So I can speak for my immigrant journey and how I came to be a U.S. citizen. But that's one path of like many, right? Like it all counts on where you come from, what date you enter the country, what your education, your education. So I even believe that like even immigration lawyers, at what it sounds like, they're having a hard time keeping up, right? With what's going on. So
yes.
So just so like 101 kind of thing, like employment specific, like so what visas are like available for people to come into the country?
Sure. So yes, there are multiple types of visas, right? And it really does depend on a lot of factors, right? Like you said, people's country of birth, their education, their immigration history. There's temporary visas, right, where you can come in from anywhere from 1 to 7 years, to permanent visas where you do get a green card, right? And you're able to live and work permanently in the United States. So that's kind of my initial question to employers when they come to me, right, is you're looking to sponsor a worker from another country. Do you want them here permanently or, just temporarily? So that's kind of the first question, right? If it's permanently, then we look for a green card. And under that category, there's different subcategories. So if you're like a manager or an executive at a foreign country and there's a subsidiary or a parent company of that company in the United States, then you can move your workers around. And they are able to come to the United States on a temporary visa and then move to like a permanent green card. So that's one pathway. There's multiple other pathways. So for, generally like speaking, people that have an education have like a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or some equivalent. There's a lot more pathways for them to come, just because there's more visa types available for those folks. And then on the other side, we have what they call unskilled labor. So those are individuals that don't have an educational degree, right? But have some sort of skill. So we're looking at like the ag industry, right? Construction, the hospitality industry. And so those individuals can come here mostly on a temporary visa, right? Generally, like I said, 1 to 5 years is more common. And some of those can be renewed once or twice, but most of those have a cap. And then there's specific visas tied to specific countries. So, for example, the TN visa is available to Canadians or Mexicans specifically. And those can be available to people that have an educational degree. And we see a lot of people in the ag business. So, for example, animal science degrees are fairly common. Engineers. It's funny, my parents' hometown in Mexico actually produces like a lot of engineers, and it's a very, very small town. I would say less than 1,000 people.
Oh wow!
And about half of them like have been to the U.S. here on some sort of TN visa.
Wow.
So it's it's a way for individuals to kind of move outside of like their country with educational opportunities, such as like the TN visa that could get them here. So it really depends on the individual's like education, right? What we can kind of fit them under. The more advanced education they have, the better their possibilities are.
Right.
Just because, again, there's more visas. If you have a master's, then you qualify for kind of a subsection of the H-1B visa, which is specially dedicated to individuals with master degrees. So it's easier.
Is that the one they call the Genius visa?
No, that would be probably the O1 visa. So it's for individuals of extraordinary ability, right? So extraordinary is very much like undefined, but it's extraordinary, right? So you seem to like know it when you see it, right? So I've done scientists, right? Like top level scientists that have worked for the government, like NASA, or very high level agencies with the U.S. And so those are very high standard, right? But they do allow people to come in and share their talents with the U.S., which is I think is amazing.
Yeah. So and that's the it's important because like right now, what people think immigrants. Like, I think the next word that comes to people's mind is like, which is very derogatory, is illegal, right? Like immigration, illegal or criminal. Like they're almost becoming synonymous, especially if you only consume a certain type of information or news or whatever, right? Like, and that's scary for people, that are like coming in here with their talents and the proper way and all that stuff. So the unskilled visa, that one can be like bulk, right? Is that the one where an employer can get like 20 people in with one authorization? Is that kind of how?
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is, so the H-2B visa is, there's, designated agriculture and then non-agricultural work. And so, so say you need, 20 people for a construction project, you would be able to petition more than one individual under that visa. There's a similar visa for kind of on the skilled side,
right?
Which we call blanket L. So an L visa is for intra-company transfers. So that's the one where you have a U.S. company and then you have a subsidiary in another country, right? And maybe you need to pull individuals from the foreign country to come to the U.S. and train U.S. workers. We're able to kind of pull them by large numbers. And so, yes, on both sides, the skilled and unskilled side is where we can do that.
Yeah. And employers are taking advantage, like are using this. Do you think that, well, I guess this is more opinion, but like employers need this, right? Like when they come to you, there's some requirements that have to be met, right?
Yes, there's a lot of requirements.
Yes.
This is not an easy process for the employer, for sure.
One of them is, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of them is that you have to prove that you couldn't find that person here. Is there
Yes,
some truth to that?
Yes, for some visas there is that element, right? You, as an employer, and to answer your first question, yes, employers are coming to me because they're saying, hey, I've posted this job for a year now and cannot find a qualified applicant, or there have been no applicants, right? And it's really a workforce issue. Like there's just, we don't have enough workers, right? Or if we do have workers, they're just not qualified, right? And so I think it's really an issue of we're growing our company and it's not sustainable if we don't seek workers from other countries because we just don't have the talent here or we just don't have the workforce pool. So, they're coming to me saying, hey, how can we get more employees, right? And then, yes, some of those visas do require employers to show that they have tried to gain U.S. workers and show that they were qualified. And in fact, what we call the PERM process, that's the process we have, the recruiting process, right, that we have to go through to get a green card for these foreign workers is very complex. And it's very scrutinized by the Department of Labor. So the employer will have to conduct recruitment according to the Department of Labor's standards, which are, pretty strict. The employer has to pay a certain wage, which is, pretty high generally. It has to kind of comply with U.S. worker wages. For some visas, like the ag visa, they have to provide housing, for in meal reimbursement for some of these workers. So, sometimes when people think that hiring foreign labor will save them money or will be cheaper, it's really not, right? Employers are spending a lot of money to get workers here, and then they have to, pay reasonable wages. They can't, affect U.S. workers at all. And so it's a very complicated and
it's like tasking time-wise, right? There's a lot of process. It's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of hurdles that you got to go through. And it's expensive, right? Like, can you gonna give us just a snapshot of like how much?
Sure, yeah. So it'll depend on the visa, right? But I would say your typical legal fees can range from, on the easy end, $5,000 to over $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, depending on how much recruitment the DOL is asking you to do, right? And this is getting more complicated in today's world with, like mobility and just technology, right? And having remote workers for like some of the IT
this is only the legal fees.
Yes, this is only legal fees.
Relocation fees. This is not counting housing. This is not counting the salary.
Exactly. And petition fees, right, that are only going up. So, yeah, I would say like a typical H-1B, anywhere I think firms charge from $8,000 to $12,000 just for kind of legal fees. And then you have another, depending kind of on the process, another between $3,000 and $5,000. So, you could easily be looking at a probably simple H-1B around $20,000 per worker.
For one.
Yes.
For one person.
And there's now changes, right? So specifically with the H-1B, there's a new $100,000 fee for new petitions. And so, employers are now having to consider whether this employee that they want to keep on, that's maybe very important to their company, right? Whether that person is worth $100,000.
So let's talk about that one, because that's the one that made the news, right? Like that's the one that at least is caught some news. So
yes.
Is that already in place? Is that effective?
It is effective. Yep. So I don't remember the exact dates off my top of my head, but I do remember that it was on a Friday night when they issued this news, right? That this H-1B would have a $100,000 fee imposition on it, and so that news came out like Friday, 4:30 p.m., right? So I was on my way out of the office and I learned about this, and it was set to become effective that Sunday. So, less than 24 hours or so to notify clients that could potentially be, on the other side of the world, and they weren't able to get back into the U.S., right? And so it was chaos that Friday night because the time frame was so tight. It was going to become effective on Sunday, and the regulation notice wasn't very clear on who was going to be subject to that $100,000.
Right, so there was no like grandfathering the people that are already in the process?
It did. That's not the way the notice was written, right? So the regulation, the way it was written was any H-1B is going to be, affected by this new fee. Of course, that caused chaos in the legal world.
Yeah.
Immigration attorneys were like, what is happening, right? And so I think because of that reaction, the administration set out a Twitter announcement, I think, within the next couple of days saying, hey, no, it's just for new visas, right? And so, well, as attorneys, what does new mean, right? That is it new?
A new one that I'm about to close here in the next week, or a
Exactly.
new one that applies?
Exactly. So there's still a lot of inconsistencies, and we're not exactly clear, but we do have more of a understanding now as to who would be subject to the $100,000 fee. And it's generally new individuals that are outside of the U.S. that are applying for H-1B for the first time. Or it could apply to individuals that are moving from one company to another company. So, and I think that's just kind of the way we've been working. We see new policies issued, and as immigration attorneys, we are very aware of, how it impacts different parts, right? So the company itself, their business, the economy, the family side of immigration. So there's just a lot of moving parts. And so when we don't get policies that are take into account, all of those parts, then it can be a lot of chaos.
So what are your kind of clients saying? Like, I can't afford this, or like some can? Like, where's the range of their reaction?
So yes, I got a lot of calls, right, in those days. Most of my clients we're worried about, hey, what's going to happen to our workers that are on H-1Bs, right? Do we need to prep them for potentially, hey, we might not be able to keep you? I work with a lot of multinational clients, and so they just range, right? Some of them can afford the $100,000 fee, and we're ready to pay it for a particular employee, right? Maybe it's a very...
This comes out of the company?
Yes, this has to be paid by the company. Correct. Yep. So for those that had employees in this position, generally they were high level, right? They were executives that are just integral parts of their companies, right? So they're willing to pay them. On the flip side, I also had calls from small businesses or smaller businesses that said, hey, we have like 10 H-1B. There's just no possible way that we would be able to keep these individuals if we have to pay this $100,000 a year fee, right? I mean, it's going to be like $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of concern for sure. Now we're kind of in the early stages of this, so I don't think as immigration attorneys we've seen kind of the ripple effect yet, because H-1B happens on a cycle. So petitions opened around March of each year, right? And they closed in June of that year. And then the employee would start working in October generally of the year. And so this was announced early or late fall, I think. And so we're coming up on the March date to start a new cycle. And that's, I think, when we'll start to see whether petitions actually drop for H-1Bs because of this new fee. So
yeah, I've heard from experienced like business, people that it's gonna take it's not gonna be a good impact on the economy. Like a lot of companies depend on this talent.
yes.
And some might say, well, I gotta close the doors, or I'm just gonna go open a business in another country then, or like, because it's just too much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that has happened recently that is getting harder for like this segment of the immigration?
Yes. So every day when I walk into my office, there's one new thing, at least one new thing, right? So every day my practice is changing. What I told a client last week may not apply today, or may be completely different. Or I may be, saying to a client, hey, I know we were going to apply in the next 3 months. We need to apply today.
Oh, wow.
So there are changes every day, which makes, just the practice a lot more complex, right? Because you just have to be ready to kind of move with those changes. So yes, there's been a lot of changes. First of all, there's just much higher scrutiny for all petitions, right? I think, I'm not exactly sure what's going on over at USCIS, which is the agency that processes most of these petitions, but there's just enormous backlogs. There is more scrutiny on petitions, so a very, heavy based evidence file will get a request for more information. So they're saying, even though you submitted all of the evidence we needed to, right? It's still not enough. So they'll kick it back to us and say, you didn't show that this particular requirement was met. And so, we'll work on the file again, prep it up and send it. And luckily, knock on wood, mine have been approved, right? But it causes an extra layer of anxiety, right, for both the client and the foreign national. And it's more money, right? They have to pay for my time to respond to this RFE. Sometimes it includes fees again. And so it's expensive. And, ultimately it just pushes timelines back, right?
So the timeline, what is it looking like? Is it they just keep getting pushed? Like, are we talking months, few weeks?
So everything is taking longer. For H-1Bs, because of the strict kind of cycle that they're on, generally, or period for submission of H-1Bs was from like June. We would submit it by June, and then we had to have an answer by October, because that's when the foreign worker would start working. So generally, USCIS was pretty good about issuing those approvals or denials within that time frame, right? The 3-4 months. Now we are seeing approvals way past the October 1st start date, and continue to. So for example, like, my worker was supposed to start October 1st. Now we're in, middle of December, and we still don't have an answer. Second part of that is that there used to be some mechanism for fast tracking certain petitions. So we could pay around $3,000 to have it looked at or processed within 15 or 30 days, depending on the visa. The latest trend is that we're finding that we're paying that fee, but they're not being adjudicated within that time frame. So, we paid to have it processed within 30 days. It's now been 90 days, and there's no sign of an approval or denial or any processing on the case. So even the mechanisms that were set in place to kind of expedite some of those processes are not working the same way that they used to work. And so we're waiting a lot longer. So that just means we have to plan ahead, right? So I always tell my clients, if you have like a busy season, right, like for construction or landscaping, their busy season is generally March through October, November, right?
You want to get started now.
Yes, a year before, right?
Yeah.
Because, what we could do in 4 or 5 months is taking, a year now. And it's not as bad on the business immigration side as it is on the family side, but we are seeing more and more scrutiny, which is leading to backlogs.
And so do you see... like all kind of industries kind of coming to using the employment immigration to their advantage, like businesses, or is it just like particular sectors?
That's a good question. No, I would say it's pretty much across various sectors. And it's really going to vary kind of by the visa type. For example, H-1Bs. I have a lot of H-1Bs in the tech industry, right? Manufacturing too, with a lot of engineers on H-1Bs. Kind of with the O's, you see more like high-level PhD. So like, maybe in the medical field, science field, kind of the STEM industry. And then, we see construction, hospitality, landscaping, agriculture.
Right.
So I would say it's pretty much across the board.
Like across
it's everywhere.
The board.
Mm-hmm.
So like and the reason why I asked that question is because I think the perception is that like they're taking our jobs, right? Like that's what somebody that is anti-immigration, that's probably their first thing. Like they're taking our jobs, or what was the first one that we say? Oh, that they take benefits, or that undocumented people take the benefits. But I've seen cases like in Alabama, I think somewhere down the south, that some farmers were like, well, okay, come and apply, and I think they said 1 or 2 people showed up and they left 4 hours. This is like field workers. There are just some jobs that the modern American is just like not willing to take. And that's why employers kind of have to come, right, to this resource and say, okay, well, we need workers that are willing to work sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's in agriculture or in construction, landscaping, hospitality, right? Like housekeeping is a back-breaking job.
Yeah.
You know, like people
most
have
of
to,
those jobs, right?
Yes. All of these jobs. Meat packing plants.
Exactly.
And I say this because I've been in the staffing and recruiting industry for over 2 decades now. So like I know what type of worker will take care of this job for you without batting an eye, without complaining, be there no matter what every single day. So there's that's it's like a myth, there's this illusion that like, they're taking our jobs. There's no jobs been taken.
No, and
I think that needs to be very clear for people, because like it's an empty kind of argument.
Well, it's a scapegoat, right? I mean, the perm process will physically show you, right, the number of applications that came in from U.S. citizens, right? And with some of clients, right, it's like 3 or 4, right, compared to maybe 30, 40, 50. And then through that, yes, you have, right, maybe you have someone that applied that's qualified, and then they just leave after 2 days, right? So yes, it's very much a workforce issue. And being kind of practicing employment law too, you just understand the labor market is not what we need it to be, right? We need more workers and we just don't have them. And so it's more of an issue for those low paying jobs, because, people don't want to work for low wages, right? And so I think that's a big part of it, is employers are saying, hey, we need the work, right? We're growing, our capacity has expanded, but we don't have the workers to carry out the job. And so yes, it's very much we just don't have enough qualified American workers.
Right. Medical field, which is like doctors.
Exactly. Yeah. And particularly in rural areas where it's very difficult to get workers.
Yes. I spoke with a doctor. He's a surgeon, and he said that like he sees a lot of doctors that work in rural hospitals that are immigrants, right? Like they're there with visas because, like the modern day doctor they want to live in New York or LA and Miami, right? They don't want to live in Perry, Iowa.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So then
Yeah.
there's a certain doctor that will, because they're getting, both benefiting, right? Like they're getting the visa and the hospital is getting their physician.
Yeah.
Like immigration is so intertwined with the economy that I think that a lot of people are missing that. A lot of anti-immigration people are missing that by hurting immigration, or by making it harder, it will hurt the economy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, right? Immigrants contribute to the financial economy, right? And we've already seen it, right? A decrease in the workforce is going to hit the economy now or in the next years. We're going to see it. I mean, I have clients that call me and, they are willing to go through the complex process of hiring a foreign worker because they have the capacity to do it, right? And when they don't, it hurts. It hurts their company, and overall, it hurts the economy. That leads into, it's a ripple effect. So, for sure, it's very closely tied.
Yeah, it hurts businesses. So, is there something that you see that's kind of promising? Is there any signs that?
I think long and hard about that every day. See the silver lining in all of this. Well, there will certainly be changes, right? The H-1B program specifically, there's been talks about kind of revamping the lottery system. So it's a lottery system currently, right? And it's random. So that means, just to give you an idea, there's we'll say 85,000 visas available for H-1B workers each fiscal year. Just in the last couple years, there have been over 500,000 applicants. So that tells you your chances of being selected for the H-1B, right, are very low.
Yeah.
You almost can't rely on that. There's been talks about redoing the lottery system so that to go to kind of a weighted system, right? So individuals that apply to positions that are higher paying would have, say, would be 3 times more likely to be selected. I'm not quite sure what that is going to do other than, just create more competition among employers who are already struggling to get workers, right? Now you're going to have to pay a lot more just so you can have a worker, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that worker is going to be better, right? And you're kind of taking a gamble as a business, but you're going to have to pay more in order to stay competitive, because if you're offering to pay $200,000 in wages to that worker versus $50,000, which would be more aligned with maybe a ag type of job. Well, guess who's going to win those H-1Bs, right? Yeah. Or those visas. So I can't imagine that's going to help the economy. So it's hard for me to imagine kind of any positive sides to this right now. I mean, I think
it's hard.
It is,
because it's like impeding businesses to grow.
For sure,
right?
Yes,
and like it's supposed to that like the systems in place, whether it's like city, right, ordinances, city, council, state, federal, all these institutions should be making it like I guess not easier, but at least not make it super hard to like grow and like it's already hard to be a business owner.
Yes,
it's already hard to run a business, and why would anybody want to pay like extra 30,000 to find somebody when they can find them here, right? Like,
well, they can't find him here, right?
Right,
So
yes, that's
so the
the
thing
whole- yeah,
is,
yeah.
they don't pay it, and then they don't find someone that's
Right,
qualified,
right,
right?
right.
And now it's really the business that suffers, right? Because you have to, decrease your workforce, and that's going to affect your bottom dollar, right?
You decline business
You
because
just
I can't
not,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah, you're not growing. You have to decline business, like you said. So yes, I mean it's going to certainly affect businesses' bottom line.
As a lawyer, like, what is the most common thing that you kind of find yourself correcting people on, whether it's like during your work or just kind of like just you're walking around, people are like, oh, you're a lawyer, immigration lawyer, they
Yeah.
say something and then you're like, yeah, no, that's wrong.
So prior to doing business immigration, I think it was like, why don't people just become legal, right? Like, why don't they just get their green card and do it the right way? I don't get that as much now because I don't do family immigration. What I get is I get calls from clients and say, hey, I have this business, and I heard about petitioning or sponsoring employees. I have a project coming up in 2 months, and I'd like them here, right?
Yeah.
And it always starts off like, okay, that's great, but I just want to set the expectation that this isn't going to happen in 2 months. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that we can bring foreign workers here like
right.
from one day to another. And so I've been practicing for 5 years. And so when I first started practicing, we were looking at maybe like, if we plan enough within 5-6 months, we could get it done. Now it's like, well, no, I'm planning ahead for the next 3, 4, 5 years, right?
Oh, wow.
And so we really need to work with clients in, like their strategic planning is if you're going to be growing and you're going to be anticipating needing more workers, let's talk through what that looks like now, so that you can kind of understand the process and start as soon as you need to be able to stay on target with your plans. And we're also, when we work with clients and their workers, most of the temporary visas are 3 to 5 years. As soon as I file a visa for a 3-year stay, we're already talking about the next 3 years because, we have to get started on that next renewal pretty soon after we file the first one.
Maybe like a year break and then start 2 years ahead or something.
Yes. And for, that can vary individual by individual. If we have someone from Mexico or India, we need to plan their stay here for the next 15 to 20 years because that's what the backlog looks like, right? Versus if we have someone from, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, right? Maybe they can get their green card in months. So it really depends on where the individual is from, and it takes a lot of planning to be able to get the individual and the client where they want to be.
Right. So people are like that say, and I know this might be more on like the family side, but they're like, get in line, like do it the right way. But doing it the right way is becoming unaffordable. Right, like you cannot afford to pay $100,000 for somebody as a business, right?
Correct.
And all these industries need workers. They don't want, right? They don't want to do this.
No one wants to spend an additional, $100,000 or $50,000 on this, right? If they could find the workers here, they would certainly. They've tried, right? They go through the process.
And I mean, I don't know what more dire word is after need, but like some of these industries depend on this, right? Like I'm thinking more of like the agricultural right now. I mean, Southern California, for example, there's a lot of agricultural workers, and even here in Iowa, there's
Yes.
There's agriculture workers right now in camps that are like, housed almost like army bunk bed type style, where like they're on bunk beds, and that's what they came here to do. They come and work in the fields from sun up to sundown, and then they go back to so like farmers understand this.
Yes, they sure do.
The agriculture industry understand this.
Mm-hmm. They understand the need. And Iowa, I was always surprised when I started doing this work, like how unique Iowa is. I mean, we know it's an ag industry, right? And we depend a lot on the ag workforce. But there are so many companies that were started here in Iowa that are now international companies, right? Manufacturer. And I didn't know that. Like a small town, right? From like small town Iowa. And I'm like, that company, that's their headquarters?
Yes.
Like, right?
They're global.
And so like not just the ag industry, but really like across all industries. And ag is, obviously one of our biggest industries here in Iowa, but Iowa is just unique where we have so many industries that rely on foreign work.
Yeah.
And you're right, like being rural, well, no one wants to come and work here. They can go to a bigger city and get paid a higher wage. And so it creates this big issue for employers here in Iowa specifically.
Yeah, to recruit. So it's immigration is a topic that some people kind of have one blanket opinion over it. And I think that, I don't think there is so much intricacies within it, right? So like, I think it's, I just read something that said, you're not entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your informed opinion.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's entitled to be ignorant.
Exactly.
And I do these conversations because I want to educate myself too, but hopefully one or two people can hear it and can just be like, okay, I guess I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think, in today's world, it's so easy. Like you're just fed so much, right? And it's hard to know if this is truthful or if it's real.
Yes.
But in the same token, like we have everything at our fingertips to track down, right, the correct information.
Yes.
Whatever that is, right? So there really is no excuse unless you really don't want to see it for what it is, right? To have kind of an uninformed opinion.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't all know everything about everything, right?
Sure.
But I think that goes back to your point is, yes, before you speak on something that's, like the least you could do is be informed about what it really is, because there's a lot of misinformation out there for sure.
And it could be affecting your neighbor, like maybe your neighbor needs that employee and they have these aspirations to become I don't know, the next inventor, and they have something, but they might need like an engineer or a chemist that they just can't find here, but that person plays a key role into this.
So that's funny you said that, because I have a story, right, where there was this employee. It's a foreign national, very, very talented individual, very educated, and let's say, for example, right, he was a scientist, right? And he is on the verge of, say, finding the cure to cancer, right? There's been changes over the last year that have, because that individual is from a certain country, it can no longer work for the country, right? They can no longer work for U.S. agencies. And so I just think what a loss to this country, right? Because we're not able to employ that individual and reap the benefits of his education, right? To like find a cure for cancer, right? So that's just kind of what, the implications of policies, and it's not just, it doesn't just affect the foreign national or the employer, right? It affects the U.S. ultimately.
Right. It's like doing a disservice to the country by not having the talent. And that can be said in like all kind, and we're not even talking about the cultural implications, right? Like the ramifications of what families have to go through. I would assume, and if you have a story, please feel free, but maybe there's somebody that this new $100,000, the employer's like, sorry, and they've been there for, I don't know, 7-10 years. Now they have to like uproot their family and like go back, and that's a lot of work. Even just moving from state to state is a lot of work.
Yes. I work with a lot of individuals that have been here for many years, right? And they've gone through the process. They are in line to get their process, right? To get their green card. But because of the country they're from, there is a backlog of 20 years. And so, yes, every time we file a petition, we're talking about what happens if this gets denied, or if there's changes in the regulations, which, on the good side, they have 60 days to figure it out.
To like self-deport.
Or find another visa or find another employer, right? 60 days, which is, these people have families, right? You have to uproot your life. On the worst side is you get the denial today, and that's it. You have to, tomorrow you start accruing unlawful status, right? And so these are very real. Have you had
to deliver this news to people? The denials?
Yes, unfortunately. I mean, I've been lucky enough where, I always try to consult with clients multiple avenues, right? I'm very much a plan B, plan C, right? So, but yes, it's a reality, and it's becoming more of a reality today that, we have denials or we don't have
when
ability.
You say backlog of 20 years, I want to make sure, like, is that an exaggeration or like it's legit? Like
it's
20
not,
years?
At minimum, right? So particularly for India, you can go up and look it up, right? Anyone can go look it up. It's called the Visa Bulletin. It'll designate visa categories. For example, if you are a U.S. citizen and you're applying to petition your spouse, right? That'll be a category listed, and it'll tell you what year they are processing petitions from for that specific country, for that category, right? So, for example, it might say, we're processing them from 2024. Well, you're like, okay, so we're like a year out, right? For Indian individuals, those tend to be like 2007, 2008, depending on the category.
But they're processing now?
Yes. So that would mean they're processing petitions that were filed in 2007.
Really?
In 2025. Yes. So, and so that tells you, wow, I have 10 years, 12 years to wait before, it's my turn. And so anyone can go look them up and see. Now there's only, a few countries that are backlogged bad. So Mexico, India, the Philippines, China. Most other countries it's not as bad. But generally that's where we get, most of our foreign workers is from those countries, which is why it's so backlogged.
So that's imagine if you have to wait in line for that. I know that waiting in line thing, I bring it up, but it's such a easy thing to say, right? Like some people are like, get in line, do it the right way. Like, but there's, so much more to that.
It's so much more complex, right? And they probably are already in line. And
they've been in line.
Been in line,
yeah. Well, thank you for helping me break down some more of these complexities of this immigration system. If you had like a magic wand, if you were the one that was in charge, what would you think is like good solutions?
Wow, that's a big question. I wish I had a solution. I think immigration is just so complex, right? There is not one thing that could like make this right? I don't ask for a lot. You know, the regulations are so outdated. Like it does it's a disservice really to everyone that we have not updated regulations in so long, right? And I think starting off with just doing that, like, you know, taking a look at the U.S.'s needs, and where we want to go, right? And updating those regulations to today's real life, right? I mean, we're still talking about, you know, with like the explosion of remote work, right? Some of those regulations were written way before remote work was even a thing. And so particularly after COVID. So we're still working like within that framework, right? That just, it's old, it's outdated. It creates a lot of red tape, a lot of administrative burden that costs employers time and money. And so I think really just revisiting the regulations and maybe not making it easier, because it's certainly not easy to petition a foreign employer, but making it realistic with today, the way that people work today, right?
Yes.
So I don't know that I have the magic answer, right? I wish, you know, that USCIS would just have more people processing petitions, because it's really disheartening to see that, you know, someone qualifies for a benefit, for a immigration benefit, and it's going to be 20 years before
I'm assuming they're overworked, right? Like I was speaking with Sonia, another immigration lawyer, and USCIS workers must be super stressed out.
Yeah, I don't envy their position at all, right? Because they have to answer to the administration and still do their work, right? And so they're certainly overworked. USCIS is self-funded, so they don't get any funds from the federal government. And so that's why they have to raise fees, right? And so that trickles down to individuals. But they just don't have enough workers to process these applications, which then makes them, you know, find ways to elongate processing times, right? Because they don't have the time to process all these petitions. And so that's kind of when I was talking about premium processing, right? The fee you pay to expedite. What we're finding now is that sometimes they will issue like a request for evidence just because it'll buy USCIS time to kind of look at the petition again.
Is there any other? I mean, so you're a lawyer. You talk to other lawyers.
Yes, we have to in today's world. Yeah.
But in your experience from education, you know, to your modern, all your job and all this stuff, is there anything you can kind of compare this to? I'm talking more like the backlog part, like the timeline part.
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought of that, but
I mean, like criminal, right? Like criminal, like court cases, they can take
have to, right?
Months
so there's
and maybe a year.
But you know, there's protections in place. I was just talking to a judge, and during the government shutdown, right? She said, "Well, our civil cases have really backlogged, right? But not our criminal cases, because it's a constitutional right to have a speedy trial, right? And so I don't know that there's anything comparable, because immigration is so unique, and the agencies that are, you know, that work under immigration are just different from everything else. There's nothing guaranteed in immigration. You don't have generally like a right to appeal immigration decisions. And so it really is like its own.
Even if like two big corporations, like there's an acquisition, like big giants, right? Like right now, I think Netflix and by Warner Bros. Or something. If that happens, I bet it'll take like a couple of years, right? 2-3 years for it to really become into
much faster.
Right. Yes. Like these are two like gigantic like mammoths of like companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think like when you have something that takes that long, there's conversations that need to be had, right? Like there's room for like saying what's going on here, and like let's look at it. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's a denial, though, right? Like because
Yeah.
I guess it's part of the
Yeah.
it's part of it. It's not nobody's saying approve everything, do everybody.
No, just the process happens kind of on a. I mean, it's it's completely unreasonable right now. I mean, we'll file the perm process, which used to take 6 to 8 months, and that was pretty long, right? Now it's over 3-4 years, right? And you spend all that time and money, and 4 years later you find out that it's denied. And so that's kind of what we're working under. So yeah, and I do a lot of transactional work, right? A lot of corporate work, and so it's not even comparable to kind of that M&A situation you're talking about with Netflix, because that's between parties, right?
Yeah.
Private parties. So
Yes.
if we want to get this deal done in a month, which happens a lot, right? Attorneys are working day and night to get it done in that time frame. Here, there's really no. I mean, immigration and USCIS, Department of Labor, they work as they want, right? There's really no mechanism to hold them to. I mean, some of the regulations do state, you're supposed to adjudicate petitions within a certain time frame. That just doesn't happen. And so what do we do when it doesn't happen? Well, we can, file lawsuits, file mandamus claims, but ultimately that's going to cost money, right? And
more
time.
litigation, more time, more cost. So obviously I'm pro-immigration because like I'm an immigrant. It's like what you're saying to people is, if you're anti-immigration, you're saying don't bring talent here, don't bring a contributor, don't bring a taxpayer, don't bring somebody that's going to be part of a community. Maybe not maybe they bring different foods, so it's like you're saying no to a lot of like positives, which ultimately for cities and states and even the federal government is taxpayer, right? Like that's another taxpayer that you're bringing in. So for me, it's like an upside down type of approach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, if anything, these individuals are taxpayers, right? They come here and they work, they pay their taxes. And honestly, a lot of the visas require you to be a perfect citizen, almost, right? If you get in trouble, if you have any criminal issues, like your visa will be revoked. Not only that, I mean, your employer could terminate you, right? And so that means that you're out of status now, because of a lot of visas are tied to the specific employment. So if you lose your employment, that means you're also losing your visa. Yeah. So individuals have to be pretty much stand-up citizens to be able to be here, continue to renew,
maintain their status. Yeah. Statistically, like U.S. citizens commit more crimes. And that's the kind of like tragedy about this, right? Is that like on the news, immigration has been portrayed as, illegals and criminals. So if you're a person of dark complexion, then you're thrown into that narrative, and somebody that's afraid of, immigrants, they're just like assume that that you are, what the news are. So you kind of, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous for those narratives to become reality in people's mind, because, I could be walking down the street one day on a Sunday, just, wearing whatever, and just people are going to base their opinion on the color of my skin, right? So it just doesn't play well for us as like neighbors and human beings, like buy into this.
To the narrative, yeah, for sure. I mean, it creates, right, threats where people think, something is there that it's not. And I think it's just part of, the polarizing nature of the topic, right? People are here or they're on this end of the spectrum. And it's hard because we're not talking to each other. We're not really understanding the realities of the topic and how complex it is. And it isn't, everyone has to leave or no more immigrants in the U.S. or doors or borders are open, right? It's somewhere in between.
Yes.
But I think the emotions are so high that it just kind of blocks people from being able to have discussions over it.
Yeah. Hopefully this conversation helps somebody.
Let's hope. Yes. Well, it's not the most exciting work, but it's very much needed for Iowa and for states across the nation. Like we rely on foreign workers, right? And we need to acknowledge that, and that's just part of the reality. And businesses know that. And it's too bad that, our system just makes it very, very burdensome to get the workers that, companies are calling me and saying, hey, we need them. What do I do to get more workers here, right? And when I go through the process, I hate having those initial conversations because it can look very dreary, right? Like,
so you can imagine. Even as a small business, right? You're like, something needs to be happening in the next 3 months. We can't foresee that far ahead.
Exactly. Yeah.
As a small business, you don't see that far ahead. So if I call you and you're like, we're looking at a couple years, like, so now I have
you need workers tomorrow.
Now I have to change entirely everything that I thought I would work.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's particularly hard for like startups, right?
Yeah.
That are sometimes don't have the capital or have like investors on them, right? And so, but they need the foreign talent. And so it can be particularly hard for small companies, small businesses, family-based businesses, and startups. But,
So to close is immigration is not wanted or is not like a luxury. It's a need. You would agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, our economy can't survive without foreign workers.
Yeah. And not to be an alarmist, but I like I said, one said this $100,000 new, what do you call it?
The H-1B fee?
Fee. She was like, it can destroy a big part of the economy because these are crucial roles.
Yeah, I mean, some of these, like if you think about rural Iowa, right? Say you need a lab tech, right, for a hospital. You're not probably even going to be paying $100,000 in wages, right? But you're going to be expected to pay $100,000 per year, and H-1B is 3 years, so $300,000 for someone that's not even going to be making $100,000 in wages. And so what are your options there? Like it's just, it's going to drive away businesses and it's going to affect the economy. Bottom line. Yeah.
Bottom line. We'll have to do this again, Julie.
Yes.
And thank you for making time for us. How do people can get a hold of you? What's if an employer wants to apply 5 years?
And if they have their 10-year plan out already. Well, one thing I do get a lot of calls that we didn't touch on, but
sure.
Compliance, right? Whether you sponsor foreign workers or not, you still have to comply with immigration laws, which say that you have to verify that all of your workers have lawful work status, right? And so I get so many I-9 questions and phone calls, right? There's been a lot happening in that part of the world too, with I-9 compliance and, termination of parole and other humanitarian parole programs, where maybe an individual from Cuba had work authorization and all of a sudden that was terminated and they no longer have it. And we have employers that have large number of employees that may be reliant on that particular visa status. And so, I get kind of frantic calls from, hey, we just learned that this type of parole is ending. That's, maybe 30% of our workforce. How do we navigate that? And so that's kind of the other aspect of the business immigration is helping employers stay compliant with the ever-changing landscape of I-9 compliance and just regulatory compliance.
It's I think it's the safest bet is to say, I don't know too much about that to speak on it. I know
Can't go wrong there.
Right. Like, I don't know too much about it, so let me find the expert that like does this for a living, right? Like when we look for a mechanic, I go to an expert. Like I don't try to fix it myself. But it's like this back pedaling of some of these authorizations are like, these are traumatizing, life changing. I was watching Frontline on PBS. It just came out last night. It's called Status Venezuelan. But so they follow three that people that got an authorization to be here, to work here. And then when Trump took over, they revoked those. And then so they got picked up and then they were taken to the jail in El Salvador. And they spent there for months. I mean, nightmare stuff, like, and 4 months later or something, they were released. But, when people do, like, they got authorization, they were here legally, they had documents, and then the backpedaling of it made them undocumented, made them illegal, and then they end up in freaking, like, the worst place in the planet, in a different country. Imagine, that's gotta be...
Yeah.
I don't, like, I can't even, I mean, I can a little bit, but it's horrendous, right? So, like, so it's important for people to know that there's, like, humans are, when you just yell out something, anti-immigration or illegals, or do it the right way, or, like, if you're just anti this, just... These are we're humans. Like, this is humanity, right? Part. Like, there's a humanity aspect to it. And I think, like, hopefully some people can kind of think a little bit more about that. So, Julie, thank you again. Let's do it again.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about student visa.
We didn't even get to that. No.
That's like a whole...
I can come for a whole month and we can talk about things.
Yes, okay. We should, because that's a whole different thing, right?
Yes, yeah. And there's going to be updates every day, like I said. So we will have plenty to talk about. But yes, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully, someone learned something new.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have more questions, right?
Yes.
But we'll continue this.
Thank you. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking, like, student is a whole different animal.
Yes. Yeah. There's been a lot of changes with student visas, and it's scary, right? God. I mean, these are like young individuals that don't have their life figured out, crazy. Very scary for them, what's happening. Yep.
Thank you again, Julie.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time,
yes.
and we'll see everybody next time.